Thanks very much, Janie and Stephen and CEDA trustees and ladies and gentlemen for the kind invitation and opportunity to be here with you. Can I begin my remarks, of course, by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I'm honoured, Stephen, to be considered a friend of CEDA, and you do remind me that I did attend on a few occasions not quite as big a gathering as this. It was a little bit smaller when I was a minister, when I was just the humble leader of the opposition, but seeing as the Victorian community gave us that great gift, the opportunity and the responsibility to govern on the 29th of November last year, it's great to be back and to talk about the state of our state, the fast start that we've made delivering on the commitments that we took to the election, and what I think is an optimistic and positive plan for our state's future. There's a lot of good things going on in Victoria at the moment, but there are challenges. But there are many opportunities, all of which I think we're in a much better position to address them, to take advantage of them, to build for the future if we work really hard with a sense of urgency, not haste, but with a sense of urgency. And that's where I wanted to begin today before I give you a little bit of a laundry list of some of the things that we've done. And I've just come from the southeastern suburbs, which is not only one of the fastest growing areas in our state, but it's where I call home as well, where the good people of my electorate are good enough to send me to the Victorian Parliament, fresh off a very significant announcement I just made there, but I'll come into that in a moment. I wanted to begin by giving you a really clear sense that I value, that my team values every day in government. It's a precious gift, and not one day is to be wasted. That's the culture that I led our party with over the last 4 years. We did not waste a moment in developing an alternative policy agenda. We didn't waste a moment in doing the hard work of demonstrating not that we were just an effective opposition, but that in fact we were worthy of that title as the alternative government. We didn't waste a day in putting together an ambitious, an optimistic and a progressive agenda for our state's economy and for the many communities that make us the envy of the world in so many different ways, in arts and culture, in innovation, ideas, the whole contest of ideas around education. You know, we are beacons not only to other parts of Australia, but indeed many parts of the world. Sport, major events, manufacturing and advancements in the important manufacturing of goods, the professional services centre of our nation and potentially the professional services hub of our region. And I can keep going on in agricultural production, in so many different areas, the visitor economy. It's a long and impressive list. There's a lot to be very proud of as a parochial Victorian. But there's not a moment to be wasted. That's what's most important. If you run for office, if you seek the office of government, then you need to be ready to deliver on it. And that's why in these 117 days, I think it is now, not that anybody's counting or anything, the media do count down, we have, I think, laid the foundations of a really ambitious and optimistic agenda for our state. Just before I go through some of the highlights of that, because I think that does define the state of our state at this time. You know, a new government having ousted the previous government just after one term, a new government that's perhaps of a different generation, a new government that came to power with a very well-developed agenda. We've made that fast start. I do want to hopefully leave you with a very clear sense that we value every day in government and we are getting on with things. We are absolutely getting on with things because the indecision, the lethargy, the inertia, the inability to get on and deliver better outcomes, no one voted for that. That perhaps is symptomatic of recent years, but no one voted for that late last year. That's not what people want, and it's certainly not what our state needs, both internally as well as projecting to the rest of the world. But saying that's one thing, delivering it's another thing. So let me just take you through a few things that we've done in this first stage of our term in office. And I think they do flesh out that point about urgency but not haste, purpose, but also a culture of listening and trying to engage as best we can. Always having an open door, always being prepared to better understand challenges and to better understand the unique perspectives that so many, whether it be business leaders or CEDA members, so many different stakeholders across the community. That's the other point I want to leave you with today. getting on with things, but also having an open door and an engaging culture. That's very much the Victorian Labor way, and I think people who engage with the Braxton Brumby governments would credit us with that, and I'm very keen to make sure that we are no different. So in terms of things that we've done in what's been described as a fast start, let me start most recently. I've just returned from the southeastern suburbs where we announced what will finish up being somewhere between $2.5 and $3.5 billion worth of investment, one of the biggest public transport improvement projects the state has ever seen. The Dandenong-Pakenham-Cranbourne line is our busiest rail line. We're ordering 37 new train sets. These are high capacity train sets. They are very important in terms of carrying more passengers and making sure that we've got the best rolling stock, the most contemporary design, the best product to move the largest number of people. There are 9 level crossings, something that's unique in many respects to Melbourne, certainly in terms of the quantity. 9 of them on the Dandenong-Pakenham-Cranbourne line. All of them will go, and both the rolling stock order and the removal of those level crossings, both those packages of works will go to the market in coming weeks. There's a power upgrade, a conventional signalling upgrade, a new depot to be built out in Pakenham in the far southeast. This is a massive improvement on the busiest corridor in our rail network. To give you some of the numbers to represent what that investment will deliver, 42% more important passenger capacity in the morning peak. That's 11,000 more passengers moving through that rail corridor every morning. Those boom gates, those 9 level crossings, they are closed for 80 minutes and up to 90 minutes of the 2-hour peak in the morning. That sound is that amazing level crossing sound is the soundtrack to so many people's lives. The productivity, the problems, the danger, the congestion that comes from these relics of the past, all 9 of them. So from the city to Dandenong, no level crossings. This is a very significant undertaking, and it sums us up in some ways: a level crossing agenda and getting on with it, a better public transport agenda and getting on with it, but also harnessing the power of the government's purchase to deliver much better outcomes, both in terms of securing jobs, protecting diversity in the Victorian economy and underpinning the skills attainment that's critically important for the future. No less than 50% local content on build, and then we will have obviously the maintenance performed over the life of these assets locally. This is thousands of new jobs, hundreds of current jobs in the rolling stock sector essentially protected, and this is but one part of a broader rolling stock strategy that we will announce as part of the budget in just a few weeks' time. That's not a bad morning's work, and it's not a bad way of summing up, if you like, the things we stand for, our priorities, and we are getting on with delivering them. But it's not just that project. Melbourne Metro Rail, which many of you know about, this is a truly transformational investment. This is about delivering 9 kilometres of track, 5 underground stations, 20,000+ additional passengers being able to move throughout the system, getting rid of that choke point, that knot that's at the centre of our current city loop. It's about essentially being able to throw away the timetable, get the train you need, confident that it'll be there in just a few moments. The world's most livable city, well, we need a world-class public transport system, a Tokyo, London, New York, Paris-style system, and that's exactly what Melbourne Metro does. So the 9 level crossings I spoke about, that's part of a plan to remove 50, the planning for which is happening now, all of them together. Those 9 will go to the market as the first tranche, if you like. The business case for all 50, that work's being done now. We'll have 20 of those gone, basically consigned to the past by the end of 2018. The balance of those, that whole project of 50, that's 4,500 jobs, and I don't need to convince anyone in this audience just how critically important it is that we get on and get rid of these monuments to another era, another time. Melbourne Metro, this is one of those oak tree projects in some respects. There's every chance that those who start it may not be around when it gets finished. It's a long-term project. It's a decade or more. It'll be broken down into parts and we will be in the ground, having made a substantial start, a significant start on this project before the end of 2018. That's 3,500 jobs. So 8,000 jobs between those 2 projects alone. and our agenda doesn't just end there. There are other upgrades to important suburban lines, the balance of the rolling stock program I spoke about earlier on, an aggressive agenda in terms of local roads, and an equally important agenda around those roads that are key links to market, getting billions of dollars of produce from the food bowl of our nation to port, to market, to the export opportunities that are so important for employment and growth to the future. We have made those policy commitments and made good progress, whether it be delivering a Melbourne Metro authority and bringing forward the planning, not waiting until July 1, but on day one of our government, moving on that. The level crossing removal authority's been formed, and again, we've brought forward the planning of that, not doing it one or two at a time, but planning the whole 50 in one go. That's significant and very important. I was up in Mildura in the northwest of the state announcing a really exciting project, a really important opportunity for us to get so much of that produce, everything from almonds and table grapes through to bulk grain, to port much more efficiently, much more safely, and that's through the standardisation of the Murray Basin freight rail network. It's a modest investment in the scheme of things, $200, $250 million, but really powerful in terms of the competitiveness of our agriculture sector. We've made announcements about upgrading Flinders Street Station. That protects the heritage trades, that if they don't get the work, they die out, but it's also the busiest station in our nation, and one that is in many respects falling down. We've made significant investments in our TAFE system, because I know, and I think each of you know, that jobs start with skills, and if we don't have a strong vocational education and training system, then we really do hold our economy and communities back. We hold back individuals too. And every Victorian who's not empowered to reach their full potential, well, of course, that makes it harder for all of us to reach ours. It makes it harder for our economy to grow and thrive. We've also made a number of other important decisions, and they'll be clearer once the budget's delivered by my good friend and colleague, the Treasurer, in just a few weeks' time. They relate to things like hospital investment, schools and the broader education agenda, and the balance of those election commitments that we made in the lead up to the election last year. In each of these areas, we have shown a willingness to get on with things, a willingness to be as creative and as engaging as we can be, and I hope we're sending the clearest signal to the business community and to the broader Victorian community that we do value and cherish every single day that we have the great responsibility of governing our state. There are many other things that we have achieved, but I just wanted to go now back, I suppose, to culture a little bit and speak about a couple of issues. Firstly, I want to talk about the sale of a long-term lease to the Port of Melbourne, the creation of Infrastructure Victoria, and then I just want to make a couple of comments in relation to East-West Link. Each of you would know, because you heard me, I think, well, you've heard me in lots of different forums talk about a unique opportunity to change the culture of infrastructure decision-making, and that's through a much more mature discussion and debate. It's about having a set of independent governors, if you like, to provide to us advice in a contemporary fashion about what projects to build, how to fund them, how to finance them, the order in which they should be got away, and on from that even, not to appear naive, but hopefully even a much more mature discussion and debate about borrowing that's away from the cheap and often pretty immature political debate about these things. The best of Infrastructure Australia, but not a private stream of advice, a public document that would be regularly updated and could drive a public discussion and debate, with the hope that you get an agreed list of our infrastructure opportunities and challenges, and then you push forward from there, with hopefully much of that outside the day-to-day political contest. What's more, and the best of Infrastructure New South Wales, but not involved in the procurement of any project. So it's a great hybrid model, and one that I think does have every chance of changing the culture of decision-making. And again, it perhaps is not a short-term thing, but one that in years to come we'll look back and say that was the right decision to make, because governments do change from time to time, but our infrastructure challenges and our infrastructure opportunities do not. And we can never again have a period, as you might describe the last 4 years, of a government without a clear sense of what they wanted to do, and therefore not much getting done over a 4-year period. I don't think that benefits anybody. And I think there is a very clear contrast in the beginnings of our term in office compared to the early stages of those that we have taken over from. Infrastructure Victoria would, in some respects, regardless of political persuasion, Infrastructure Victoria would protect against that, because there would be not a proxy arrangement. The politicians still have to make the decisions because they're the ones that are accountable at the ballot box every 4 years. But there'd be a list, there'd be a series of projects that are agreed almost, not part of a political contest that can all too often disappoint in terms of intellectual rigour, let alone the kind of maturity that we might like to see or at play when it comes to making decisions about multi-year projects that are worth multiple billions of dollars. It is an opportunity to change culture, and we will drive it and we will deliver it, and we'll be judged on it at some point in the future. Again, that might be a bit of an oak tree reform as well, but we'll have to wait and see. There's a sibling organisation to Infrastructure Victoria, logically Projects Victoria, which is about trying to have a better standing capacity within the public sector. No offence to anybody from the big accounting houses, no offence to anybody who works in that consulting industry, but I think it is fair to say that you've got to have a better core capability to make critical assessments about the worth of projects, the opportunity cost of projects, and the general direction and trajectory you're going to take in policy terms. We could all stand to have better capability from an engineering and technical point of view, from an analytical point of view, and Projects Victoria will give us that standing capacity that belongs to the government and belongs to the public sector, not to the exclusion of those who do a lot of great work externally, but we'll just be in a much better position to analyse and make critical decisions for the future. Those cultural changes, I think, are really very, very important. If I can talk about culture more broadly, and that is, it's up to us, and it was part of our challenge to demonstrate to the Victorian community that we were a modern, contemporary, progressive, 21st century Labor alternative government. And now we need to demonstrate that we're all those things in office. One of the ways in which we did that, and if you just go back one step, how do you define that? Well, I think you define that in modern politics, certainly in our state. The state in Australia, which we would say is the ideas capital of our nation. All the great innovation and reform has always come from Victoria because we don't dig money out of the ground like some other states do. We've always had to work harder to achieve the things that we have achieved. And we will have to work harder in the future, certainly harder than we worked in recent years, to capitalise and to make the most of the opportunities that are there for us. But, you know, the way you demonstrate that you're modern, that you're contemporary, that you've got a plan for the future is to be much more focused on outcomes than you are on ideology. Ideology doesn't get much done. That's my view. It always has been. Outcomes are what matter. And that's why, as a leader of a modern Labor Party, I was able to announce 18 months before Victorians voted the plan, the bold plan, to sell a long-term lease to the Port of Melbourne. And that's a fundamental recognition that there's no public policy imperative, there's no public good served by a lazy balance sheet. And it is a lazy balance sheet if you retain, with that value captured and locked up in an asset that the proprietary right is a stevedore's right. There's no need for us to own what sits behind that contract. There's no need for us to have all of this money locked up, unable to be put to good use. Of course, AAA rated budget, critically important. A surplus balance sheet, critically important. But it can't be a lazy balance sheet. And that's why I will again take the opportunity to, credit where it is due. The asset recycling proposals put forward by the Prime Minister Tony Abbott and the Federal Treasurer Joe Hockey are outstanding. It's outstanding policy, and it's the sort of partnership where you can deliver really good outcomes. Less focused on ideology, more focused, and to a certain extent, less focused on inputs, more focused on outcomes. It could be a model, in fact, if we could have the same sort of partnership in a range of other service delivery areas, from hospitals and schools and higher education, maybe we'd all be in a much better place, state and federal governments combined. But an old-fashioned Labor Party, one not ready to tackle the challenges of the 21st century, let alone lay out a vision and a plan to turn them into opportunities, does not go to the election 18 months before polling day, go to the electorate and say, we're going to sell probably the biggest remaining piece of public infrastructure, a long-term lease, and then recycle that value into removing those 50 dangerous and congested level crossings. But we did it, and I hope it sends a really clear message to you that we are about outcomes, and we're about making sure that we deliver the framework to underpin those outcomes, not to get in the way of them. Just finally, if I can speak just for a moment before I conclude about East-West Link, there's been lots of discussion, lots of debate, lots of pretty loose commentary about sovereign risk, and often I wonder whether people actually understand what that term means. But let's be completely clear. I think the risk that is most important is the notion, and most damaging potentially, is the notion that the government just changes its mind from day to day, and that what you say before the election doesn't mean much afterwards. That's a risk. That's the greatest uncertainty. That's what I think will compromise all of us. And it's on that basis that we will not be changing the position we took to the Victorian community, because when 3 million Victorians cast their vote, that matters. Whether it's expedient, whether it's easy, whether it's challenging to give effect to, doesn't really matter. The Victorian community have made their choice, and we will honour that choice by honouring our promises. And that is not to proceed with a infrastructure project that for every dollar you invest gives you 45 cents back. That is not to proceed with a project that really has a very questionable framework around the propriety of and the probity of its business case development. And it is not to proceed with a project that was signed up to literally 5 minutes before Victorians voted, to which a side letter is now become part of the lexicon of modern political discussion in our state. We're very clear about this. We want an equitable outcome, one where costs incurred are appropriately refunded, but where we were very, very clear with the people of Victoria about what our priorities were, and I don't think anyone, even our greatest critics, could argue that we were not crystal clear about what our intentions were. I will not deliver the sort of leadership that we've seen a little bit lately, where what's said before the election bears no resemblance to what's delivered afterwards. I think that's the greatest uncertainty, and that undermines your authority completely and utterly to lead the community, to make difficult decisions, to, as I said, turn the many challenges we face into the opportunities we know they can be. I just won't do that. That may be popular, it may not be, but again, leadership's about doing the right thing, and that's exactly the government that I lead and the qualities that I bring to bear to this great gift, this great and awesome responsibility that we've been given. So I hope from my remarks today and from our performance and commentary about it over the last 117 days, you're in no doubt that we aim to get on and deliver, that we do see this state as having great potential and great opportunities and so much that we can be proud of. And hopefully in questions I can talk a little bit about some of those opportunities and some of the other work that we've been doing, everything from, if you like, reviewing, to give you a couple of examples, reviewing the framework around vocational education and training, so it's not just about rescuing it from cutbacks, but setting it up for the future, to a fundamental root and branch review of the way our major events and tourism and visitor economy strategy works, and everything in between. There's a lot to be proud of, but none of it will be better. None of it will be stronger. No one will be empowered. None of us will reach our full potential individually, collectively, or as an economy unless we work really hard and unless we make sure that we never waste even one day. That's the culture, that's the outlook, and that's the performance of our government to date, and we aim to keep going in that vein. Thanks for your kind invitation today.